Welcome back. It is the Country Viewpoint here on your colour of a Country Life, Flow FM. Well, we're exploring matters in the Riverina area of New South Wales, and to a human interest story that's gathering plenty of interest. We're talking about Maggie Dill, the former police officer of 20 years and a former Sergeant too, who is now in the art space in that part of the world. And there's plenty of great positive elements to this that we love to celebrate here on the air on Flow FM, and it's a pleasure to welcome Maggie to the airwaves. Maggie, great to be with you. How are you?
Hello, good, thanks. Nice to be here.
Well, it's excellent to have you on with us and finding out more about the person behind the former police officer who is now really making waves in the arts space. I want to go to your career in the police first. So you got to a pretty high-ranking position, 20 years, 2 decades of doing this very intensive work. Obviously, the fact that, PTSD in the end took its toll on you is not something that's uncommon for frontline workers and people working in the police such as yourself for such a long period of time. So just tell us about what those 20 years were like, and I guess, what made it so stressful in the end. Was it an isolated incident, or was it an accumulation of, traumatic events that probably you weren't even conscious of at the time that were building up?
Yep, certainly. Well, yeah, as you said, 20 years is a long time, but in all honesty, for the majority of it, it felt like it went by really, really quickly. So I was 28 when I joined the cops. So I thought I had, a pretty level head, and I was quite mature. I jumped into general duties in the eastern suburbs, so Bondi and Waverley, and fell in with a fantastic team of people. Really exciting work, got exposed to a lot of different types of crime and different sections of the community. Went from there to the surveillance branch for a couple of years, and then out west to Lightning Ridge and Walgett. I think the nature of the job itself is such that you just see the bad things, you see the bad side of life, and I don't think it's one particular incident that gets police in the end or gets people in the end. I think it's a build-up, a cumulative effect almost. I think for me it was little by little being less able to compartmentalise my feelings about things and, kind of put them away, and more dwelling on them, and my life outside of the police becoming more impacted until, 2020, 2021, I started seeing a psych. I didn't disclose a lot of it to what was going on to people around me. I was a sergeant, and I was also a relieving inspector of police. So I felt that as a management or as a leadership role required me to kind of hold it together. So I was there to look after my troops and look after my team. And I did have people looking after me, but I kind of tried to tough it through, I guess, until one day I couldn't. A bit of a nutshell version of how I came undone towards the end with my mental health.
Okay. Is one of the intricacies of the job, in your opinion, perhaps that, you can do as much training as you like, but at the end of the day, you can't be trained to, suddenly step up onto a scene which has, various sort of horrific elements to it. Perhaps even in regional Australia, this is more relevant, where you might be doing more menial tasks for a long period of time, and then suddenly something really intense happens, like a bad case of domestic violence or stumbling upon any other kind of scene. Is that one of the real problematic areas for police?
Yeah, I think, we do get some training, and there's always talk about, good habits to get into to help your mental health, like exercise and talking to people and things. But the daily grind, especially in, I think, general duties where you go from one job to the next, to the next, to the next, in a 12-hour period, there can often be no let up. So I've gone to jobs where, I went to an accident one day where the gentleman, I ended up doing CPR on him because his family were in attendance at the job. I got back to the station and didn't even have time to wash the blood off me before I had to go and respond to a call about a man with a gun. So that kind of situation and the up and down in terms of your adrenaline and responding to things, it just takes its toll over the years.
So bubbling away throughout the last remaining years where you were serving, you had this real inkling and desire to switch over to the arts space. As far as I understand, this was something that you always sort of wanted to do, but, your career came first at the time. So tell us the transition. It couldn't have been easy. It's certainly two vastly different industries. What was it like switching over in the end?
It was an interesting journey. So I hadn't really painted or done anything art-wise for the majority of my service. But when I moved to Wagga, I was just blown away by the colour around me. And for the first time in years, I actually wanted to put paint to a canvas and kind of started, I gave myself a room in the house and started quite casually and just told a couple of my workmates, a couple of my friends that I was painting. And it snowballed. I ended up selling work. I ended up painting more. I was really conscious of the benefits of it to my mental health. I felt like if I spent my days off painting, it kind of balanced the trauma, I guess, of my days on shift. But I also did find that the more I started to identify as an artist, and the more I tried to see the world. I mean, artists see colour and they see light and they see beautiful things, and that is the complete opposite to what a police officer sees. And while it did extend my career, I think probably for a couple of years, in the end I just couldn't really put the two together. And I didn't want to see the world the way a police officer has to see it anymore. I didn't want to see the ugliness. I wasn't capable of having that in my life, I guess, anymore. I wanted life to be about a little bit more than that. So started painting a lot more, and I was lucky. I had some really good people around me at the station that really encouraged my career, and then opened the gallery. So that was exciting.
Absolutely, and you can't be blamed for wanting to switch to, a space where you do see a happier side to life, I suppose. It brings us to the present. So you opened the Little Yellow House Gallery and Studio back in 2021. Where are we at with this now? I understand that you're having a great deal of success with this at the moment. So what's this journey been like now for you?
Oh, this journey's been a little bit crazy. So I had, like most artists, I'd always dreamed of, having a space where I could show my work. With Eastern Riverina Arts, I was given the opportunity to have a pop-up shop. So they were filling empty shop spaces with artists and creative people. And originally I thought I would have the space for about 12 weeks. That was 2.5 years ago now. So I opened the studio at the same time I was working full-time as a police officer. So I was trying to balance both. I guess I was opening the gallery when I wasn't at work. It was a rough ride in the sense that there was nothing about policing that taught me to run a business. So the gallery took off very quickly. We went from 2 artists very quickly to 10 artists to 20 artists. We've now got 36 artists. It was also the middle of COVID, so we closed down a few times and things were quite disrupted. But we hung in there, and Wagga's been really supportive of the gallery. So we were able to just somehow keep paying the rent. We switched over to a standard commercial lease in May 2022. So we've been on a commercial lease now for the last couple of years. So it went from a pop-up to a viable business, which was fantastic. But yes, steep learning curve. I didn't know anything about running a business, did not know anything about GST or tax or any of that kind of stuff. So I have learnt on the go, I guess.
Perhaps that's the one common thing between both your careers, learning everything on the job.
Well, I've just kind of made it up as I've gone, which, very definitely is similar to policing. You try to find solutions to problems. And so, I haven't always done the greatest job of that. I've made some mistakes with the business, but it's still there. So we've hung in there.
Well, that's a testament to your perseverance. Well, I did want to ask you just on regional and rural art at the moment. We're seeing a real uptake in interest and appetite in the regions for art. We're seeing a lot of people, perhaps not so much, taking it up as a strong hobby per se, but at least wanting to explore going on art retreats and things like that, particularly women who are, just wanting to try new things in life. We're seeing a lot of exhibitions open up in the regions too. It's obviously a fantastic thing at the moment because it's so therapeutic, right?
Definitely. I think people's attitudes changed a little bit during COVID, and they wanted to start doing things that were a little bit more fulfilling rather than just work, or at least that's the sense I'm getting from people that come to the gallery. We have all of our artists are women, ironically, the 36 of them, and a lot of them came to art late in life, like you said, wanting to explore a more creative pastime and wouldn't have, I guess, a platform without the gallery. But I'm finding regional Australia with some really active art societies, really active creative organisations that support people, getting their work out there, and really strong support in the community for local art. So at the gallery, we only stock local artists. So I only stock works from the people of the Riverina. I don't see a necessity to go outside of that because we have such talented people here.
Well, it makes perfect sense. There's no doubt about that. Just finally, before we let you go, I'm not sure how much you can comment on this, but just over the last year or so, I've seen stories about stories covering a lot of crime waves going on in the Riverina area as far as things like vandalism and theft go in rural parts of that part of the world. Is there any sort of correlation between this and COVID? It seems to have sort of been, from the other side of COVID that we're seeing all these developments. What's going on out there? Are you keeping tabs on it at all?
To be honest, I try and have as little to do with policing as possible, but I do keep in touch with quite a lot of friends that are still in the job, and I think society did change a lot during COVID. I think kids weren't attending school as regularly, and I've read studies since that show that there's a greater degree of truancy and things since COVID, a greater deal of school refusal since COVID. So I think that kind of thing has something to do with it. But I also think the fact that, it's common knowledge that New South Wales Police, like most police organisations around Australia, are running with a lot of vacancies. So they're having a hard time filling jobs. They're having a hard time retaining experienced police. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that there's, it seems to be an increase in crime, but I think it's not just the Riverina, it's probably across the board. I know the guys are here particularly incredibly hardworking, but they're also incredibly under the pump to try and manage everything that comes up every day. And when you have a lot of vacancies and a lot of, people pulling extra, people get tired and burned out and they don't last. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle. But I believe that that's a conversation that is starting to happen around Australia, and people are starting to address it, which I think is really important.
Maggie Dill is the owner of the Little Yellow House Gallery and Studio and the former police sergeant. Maggie, yours is a very inspirational story, and we thank you for lending some of your time here on Flow FM today. All the best with everything going forward. That is Maggie Dill out of the Riverina area there. All the best, and thanks again for your time, Maggie.
Thank you so much.